Hey everybody, this is Joe748, and I am joined with the SD1. How's it going, SD1?
The SD1 reminds me of the Ohio State University National Football Champions.
Here we go.
FU team up north, that's all I have to say.
I'm really sorry for any Michigan fans that are listening right now.
I mean, they won a game. They did win a game, but they are also Reliquist Bowl champions while we are national champions.
We're going to treat college football like it's politics in this podcast and not mention it going further.
It's probably a good idea.
But yeah, so we're here with a mailbag Q&A for you guys today. We had a bunch of questions submitted through BJA and also the YouTube channel. So apologies if these questions have been answered on the YouTube channel page, but we just wanted to expand on some of the answers that were given there. And so we're just going to go through these, kind of rapid fire style, and hopefully shed some light on some topics, or maybe just provide you guys with some soothing voices on the road while you're on your way to some casino in the middle of the night, passing maybe through the Southwest desert or the cornfields of Iowa, driving for 6, 7, 8 hours straight.
Or the hellhole of New Jersey.
Yeah. All right, let's start with question number 1. So as far as beatable side bets, how can they be used as cover? And is it a good idea to use those as cover?
It's not really cover if you're trying to beat it. Can it be viewed as cover by the pit because you are playing a side bet? Maybe. There are known beatable side bets out there, and there's a lot of casinos that know they're beatable too. And there are unknown beatable side bets out there to the casino. So, yeah, I mean, I feel like playing the side bet might be able to do that. But Joe, you can feel free to agree or disagree with me on this.
Yeah.
A lot of times if the side bet is good enough, the game is the side bet, not counting.
That's right. Yeah. Well, first you ask yourself, what's the higher EV move here, to go straight after the side bet or to try to blend it? But yeah, the problem is these side bets that are correlated with high-low that you hear of all the time, like Lucky Ladies, King's Bounty, there's like one other one. Sometimes that is more of a red flag to surveillance in the pit, is when you're betting high on your high count and then you're betting high on the side bet that correlates to the high count. So I've heard that before, where people will get, backed off because they were betting the side bet and it wasn't really providing much cover. The problem with the ones that don't correlate with high-low was, now you have to have a different count system. So how are you doing that? Are you doing 2 counts in your head at the same time that are totally different values?
Right.
Could be extremely good cover, but also could be really hard to pull off if you're by yourself. So more likely than not, you'd have to have someone with you doing that side bet. But I mean, yeah, I could see it being used as decent cover. But you don't, that's the thing. Like you just said, if the EV on the beatable side bet is so much higher than the card counting, then why would you waste the heat on the card counting to bring down your side bet game?
There's a lot to be said, and we may have said this before, but any person that practices other AP techniques will tell you, like, you don't go in there and check, let's do a throwback, an Ocean Magic for some pennies. You don't go and count if you're going there to hole card. Like, you don't do that. So the same thing kind of applies to, if that side bet is worth it, then that's the game.
Right. What are some good countries besides America to count cards? And are most countries the same? Oh, okay. So I guess what they're saying is, or maybe are all the countries in the European Union, or do they have similar blackjack rules? It might be easier to say what are the countries that are not worth counting cards at.
Yeah.
Because if you do find a playable game somewhere, it usually seems like, if it's a small country, maybe it's like 2 places out of that whole country that have a really, really good game. So it's kind of hard to just blanket say what countries are good. But I haven't heard anything about Macau being any kind of beatable blackjack there.
No, and they're supposedly really sharp too on top of that. I just want to see Macau. Yeah. I've never gone, but I'm going to let you take this because I'm going to preface it with Joe's boot camp talk. There's a very famous slide in it, and I'll go ahead and be a spoiler. USA #1. Take it from there, Joe.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, starting with that, I mean, you can't get better than there's so many options here. There's so many high table limits, even in rural locations, like the hours, like most casinos are 24/7. That same can't be said for, a lot of other countries. The penetration is universally better here. I mean, I think Canada's fairly decent. It's just harder to get to from casino to casino because the driving is it's so vast of a area you have to cover.
Yeah, and if you go in the winter, oh.
Yeah, I mean, I know there's some decent games like South America, a few in Central America. Like there are definitely games out there. You do have to just kind of. It's not like in the U.S. where you can be in a region of the country and be able to play 50 plus places. Like it might be a lot smaller than that, and you just have to hunt and find it. But when you do find it, usually it's outstanding.
Yeah, and also keep in mind, if you're playing in other countries, there's other variants that you need to learn to play. You need to know how to play basic strategy on European no hole card. Like, it's a different game. You can't just go in there and play standard. So that's important to know too. So a lot of times, if you're going on an international trip, you're scouting and you better know the rules of the game before you sit down and play it.
Yeah, and definitely keep your eyes out for any kind of weird rules or procedures, just something that stands out, because I think you'll be pretty disappointed if you have your mindset on, I'm going to get 1,000 hours of card counting in these trips, in international places, but you just have to look for different angles sometimes. So while it might not be easy to get a ton of hours just straight up card counting a good penetration game in other countries, you might find a game that has a really good rule set that tips the edge in your favor, and then you have to kind of find a new way to beat it. So there's always that option. So go into international playing with a wider net in your mind of how you're going to beat it.
Yeah, and enjoy it because you're traveling internationally. So definitely enjoy that trip when you take it. Oh, the other thing, I remember this from the 5 a.m. podcast, and we all laughed our asses off about it because it's so true. A lot of other countries' players, Europe, they are really bad players. And we laughed about this before. I think 5 a.m. brought it up, and you and I just both started dying laughing. Like, it's so true. Like, you haven't seen bad basic strategy until you've gone over there, and it's all of them. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy. All right, I'm not interested in a career in card counting, but I like blackjack and would like to improve my odds. I already know basic. I want to improve my game as a casual gambler. What would your advice be?
Don't.
Yeah, so all you're going to be able to do is decrease your house edge to 0.5%, and that's kind of the best case scenario. If you add counting to it, but you don't want to make it a career, you may be at best be able to break even if you do a very, very small spread, but you're kind of going to be having really big swings up and down to break even. I don't know how fun that would be if you are just trying to.
Colin mentions this sometimes at boot camp in like the intro, like what your goals are, because everybody's goals are different. And we tell people that, being a full-time pro is not for everybody. As a matter of fact, we tell people it's an awful, awful existence and you really don't want to move towards it. But he always brings up the hobbyist, and the hobbyist ranges a big spectrum, I feel like. But one of the examples he often gives is the person that plays for the comps, pretty much break even game, and they enjoy the comps and the stake and the free places and all the things. You can definitely do that. You don't need that much of a spread to overcome a 0.5% edge. So perfect basic strategy. And you can probably look at a spread and maybe not even use deviations if you wanted to, just to get that even. And then you're there for the travel, the comps, and you enjoy playing blackjack, which just sends a shiver up my spine. Yeah, I mean, you could pull that off. That would be my advice. If that's what you're going after, then you need to have perfect basic strategy. You still need to be perfect at counting. And you just have to do the math and see if you even need deviations, but you'd have to figure out what minor spread gets you to break even, or making $5 an hour, but you're getting comped if that's what you're looking for.
Yeah, making $5 an hour up and minus 5,000 a session.
Disgusting.
How do you keep your spirits up while grinding? Ooh.
Ooh. You can't always, right?
That's actually, yeah, that's a good point. I mean, there's also a healthy amount of like acceptance of being like, wow, this really sucks. And I just don't feel good. And just kind of letting that run through your system can actually be helpful versus trying to like resist and fight it. It's like, why is this happening? What,
It never really, really goes away though. Like not completely.
no way.
Anybody that tells you that is just they're lying to you or themselves or they're psychotic. That's what we say with skydiving when somebody says they're not afraid to jump out of a plane. Well, you're lying to yourself or you're crazy. Those are the only options because you're afraid. You just are. It sucks. And we've both had our share of like bitch sessions going on and texts about how bad it was. Community is a big deal. BJA is a huge reason I think I was able to get through a lot because I pretty much lone wolfed it. You did too, Joe. A lot of the counting hours. I mean, you share some of your text messages, don't you, at boot camp? Like,
Yeah. I kind of show the anger and the disbelief even after accounting for 3,000 plus hours, how it still affects you. And yeah, I think that's the biggest thing is just finding people, networking with people, like either through our website or some other website where you can trust and talk to them and they can kind of help you through those hard times and maybe provide a different insight to you, and help you get out of it. But that's why I call like card counting like a martial art because it's like, it's a whole other side of it besides just the mechanics of the card counting. It really is like a practice in patience and faith
getting beat
and
down.
Everything. Yeah.
I mean, I actually recently spoke about this with my wife and a couple of her friends. We were out for brunch and Sarah was just joking because I had come home. I was playing a pretty high EV game and I just got my teeth kicked in. And, I come home and typical spouse, significant other stuff, like, how was work, honey? And I'm like, it was awful. I got absolutely destroyed. And I say how much I lost. She's like, I don't know how you do it. Well, that segued in because she brought it up to her friends. These are really close friends that know what I do. And I'm like, people don't understand. This is the hardest part of what AP is and why anybody can learn to count cards. We always say that. It's, can you take being kicked in the balls repeatedly, like just repeatedly, over and over again, and have just under half of your sessions be losers or more than that, but you're making money because of how we score our bets. And it's the same way with, I don't care how high your edge is and other stuff too. You could still lose your butt.
Oh my God, you can. Yeah. It's like, it seems like the higher the EV, quote unquote, sometimes the harder you get hit.
The biggest destruction I ever faced was on a game with 105% edge. And it was like, my brain I just started internally laughing. Like, this is unbelievable. Oh, it's crazy.
That being said, there is a reason why a lot of us are still doing it full time is even with all the getting beat up, it's still for us worth not being chained to a 9 to 5 that we don't feel fulfilled in.
Oh yeah. And maybe we're sadists. I don't know. Could be with a little bit of both. But yeah, the no 9 to 5 thing, the freedom definitely trumps a lot of stuff. But even with that, I feel like you got to get to a certain phase before you start really realizing that. Because remember when you first started, like, I mean, your first 500 hours, like, I bet you were just going at it, working nonstop. And like, there was no idea of freedom. That it was just go, 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 go. And then, through experience, you sit back and go, okay, I can still work my butt off when I need to. But at the same time, like, I can also just take 2 months off work. And that doesn't happen in the beginning.
Right. Yeah. But also at the beginning, you're kind of so amped up and you don't want to take a break.
No.
Even if you are losing. But now I think after you play, you got a lot of hours under your belt and you have some money saved up. It's kind of like, in some ways, it makes the beatings a little bit harder.
Yeah. It does, because you want to hold on to what you have. You're like, oh gosh,
it's like, why did I do this? Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
All right. Speaking of wonging in and out, does that not raise any red flags to the floor or surveillance?
It can.
Yeah, it can.
T. Dane commented on this, didn't he?
Yeah, that latest podcast we did with T. Dane, the surveillance agent, he said something that really surprised me. And I didn't even think about this because I just assumed that they were just watching you at all times, no matter what you're doing. But he said when players are wonging in, he doesn't necessarily see them standing behind the table. He's just looking at the overhead tabletop view, and you just see a player sit down and bet 100 or whatever their bet is. It's not like he's actively scanning the pit for people who are standing behind the table and watching them the whole time. He'll see that on review when he rewinds it and looks at it beforehand. But like he said, if you're just wonging in and out, like in Vegas, if you're wonging in and out tables and you're hopping around pits, going to a different property after short sessions, like it's not a red flag.
No, there's too much to pay attention to. Yeah, they're just seeing a bet come in, bigger bet come in, usually. So it can raise red flag. But here's the deal. Everything we do raises red flags of surveillance. So you just act as if there are definitely ways to wong. There are things to do to pay attention to when you're doing it. Are you standing there watching a game because there's TVs in the middle of the pit? Like, act as if, make it look normal, look like a gambler. But at the end of the day, you can't completely mask what you're doing, just like you can't mask your bet spread or how you play. And you're going to get caught eventually at places. That's just the name of the game.
Yeah, exactly. If the table max is 500 and you're betting 500 and no one else in the whole casino is, then that's going to bring a lot of attention. That's where all the attention's coming from. It's not so much, oh, he was playing, $5, $10, $15, and then he went up to 500. Or wonging in at 500. It's the 500. That's the alarm.
Yep.
I mean, I've had it where wonging in has helped me, and it was the thing that convinced them I wasn't counting when done properly. So it really depends on how you do it.
Yeah.
If you learn basic strategy and deviations for shoe games, is that sufficient enough for double deck? Yeah, basically, do you have to learn an entirely different chart to beat double deck for deviate?
No.
Yeah, no. I'd say the only one you'd want to add is that insurance at a true 2.5 on the double deck game. That's going to be a lot of the value there on the differences.
Yeah.
And so the easy way to do that is if you're counting and a half of a deck has already been dealt in that double deck game, if the running count is over 4, then you're going to take the insurance after that point.
Yeah, and 1.5 on a single deck if you do randomly find a single deck that's playable for the insurance. Double deck, you just need to learn how to play it because a lot of double deck games are pitch. Not all. There are face-up double deck games out there, but you need to learn pitch. You need to learn the mannerisms. You need to learn to count a double deck table because you remember you're not, because it's face down and you're touching the cards, like you can't necessarily see your neighbor's cards. And I always thought it just looked really, really weird if I was trying to see their cards or asking to see their cards. Like I don't, people have said you can do that. Also, I think it is a little bit of a trap you can fall into, and it can make you easily screw up the count because you count them when you see them. And then when they're flipped, you count them again. So you have to have your system of counting a pitch game. But in terms of the playing, you nailed it. Just insurance.
Yeah, and if you guys don't have much experience with double deck, we have a good YouTube video on our channel about how to, count a pitch game to avoid some of those mistakes. We also have like a bunch of more like resources on double deck and some more videos on the web members part of BJA.
Oh yeah, and you need half deck estimation. You can't use whole deck on double deck. Half or quarter, but half will get it done.
Yeah. I mean, you can still use full deck. I did for way too long on double deck, but you're still going to be profitable, but it doesn't take much effort to add that extra half of a deck for a double deck.
Yeah, you're leaving a lot of EV on the table.
Should we focus on larger or smaller casinos?
Yeah, it's a case-by-case basis. I don't think you can. Do you think you can just blanket and say larger or smaller casinos?
Yeah, which one's better? It's really tough because on the one hand, the smaller places might not have the experienced staff that's trained to pick up on certain things. But the larger ones might be so busy with other stuff that you might just be seen as a small fish if other players are betting huge amounts of money.
It's pros and cons to both. The smaller casino, their internal limit of what scares them, the action that scares them, is always going to be smaller than a bigger casino. There might be one or two playable tables. That's not necessarily great either, depending on what your bankroll is and etc. Larger casinos can be sharper and have more tools at their disposal. So there's pros and cons to both. It's really not, I wouldn't focus on the size of the casino necessarily, just the games they have and how you choose to attack them.
Although, what was that quote that it was either Nichols or Stan Podolak said about the smellier the casino, the more profitable it is, or something like that? What did they say?
Yeah, they do tend to be dumber. Their surveillance tends to be less sharp. They don't have like tools. They might not even have BJ survey because it's expensive. They might not have any sort of biometric stuff. The game could be really, really good. My whole thing with my counting career is I always said, and it's true, I had my best variance on games that were $200 and $300 max. Like I cleared racks of black and got backed off and had to be brought, chip shelves or chip trays. And they were super nice about it. But like, and then when I can actually bet big is when that always sucks. But yeah, the smellier, that they're kind of right about that. There's some really, really good games at small dumps or gas stations, Joe. Or bowling alleys.
Okay. So yeah, maybe that is true. The smellier, the better. How do you stay calm whilst counting and doing basic strategy? Also trying not to look suspicious, keep up with the conversation, and looking natural.
First of all, kudos for using whilst. Second, practice. It's reps. Just reps.
Yeah. I mean, when I was starting practicing, I mean, I was like counting on my fingers under the table. It was like ridiculous. And now it's almost like second nature. Well, it is second nature. It's just hours. That's all it is. And some people get there faster than others, but I wouldn't say not that much faster. I think everyone kind of pretty much takes on average the same amount of time to get to that place.
Here, I'll ask the next question to you. How can I, as a new card counter, know what are good, bad, or horrible rules?
Nice. Yeah. I mean, aside from the obvious, not playing the 6 to 5, one thing I used to do was I would use like a betting software and put in the same bet spread. And then I would just change the rules and the penetration up and see how it changed the hourly and then the risk of ruin. Mostly it was because I was looking at the risk of ruin just to make sure, because I had a small bankroll back then and it was like 10,000. So I wanted to make sure it was a safe risk of ruin. But doing those reps, as far as like going into the software and plugging in the rules and, simming it and seeing what it comes out to be, doing that over and over and over again across different games, that kind of gives you a good ballpark to remember, like, oh, I know on a 6-deck game, doubling 9 through 11 is only going to be worth it if it's like less than a deck cut off with surrender. There's certain things that will make it not worth it. Or it's like, okay, double 9 through 11 is okay on double deck if this and this are there.
Yeah, the pro betting software is really good for that. And we didn't have that. And, we use CBCX. Pro betting software is definitely better, in my opinion. But then also, to your point, playing around with it is a good thing. I mean, early on, I just kind of set it up to have the worst game I was going to play. This is the EV it's giving me with this spread. And then I knew if I was playing better games, it was just more EV and I didn't get bogged down by anything other than that. And the only way I did get to that point is just playing around with everything.
Yeah. And to touch on that. So yeah, if you guys aren't members, what he's referring to is in the Blackjack Apprenticeship website, we have like a pro betting calculator software that you can access on mobile too, which back in my day, I had to go out to my car, take my huge chunky laptop out in the front seat and then do the sim to see what the rules are and the risk. Now you could just go to the bathroom, pull out the calculator on your phone and just do it there. It's way, way better nowadays. But yeah, I would just do that over and over again until you get a good gauge. All right. At what point is your card counting journey over? Like at what point do you move on to other sources of income or ways of life? That's a good question.
Yeah. I feel like we've kind of talked about this many different ways. It's not necessarily this direct. I mean, it's up to you, right? You'll know when it's time for you want to be done, you don't want to be done. Maybe you want to move into some other AP stuff. Do you have an end goal, an exit strategy of like what you're trying to achieve? I've always said that I wanted to hit X in terms of the amount of money that I have, in retirement and things set up and things moving in a certain direction. And then, I'm done. And I've talked about this before on other podcasts, like, moving towards the revenge tour and whatnot. The reality is, I think that for the very foreseeable future, AP will always just be part of what I do. But for now, I'm still a full timer, and who knows? I don't know. Maybe it would be like Richard Munchkin, who keeps saying he's retired, but whatever. I think he might actually finally be. But it's just up to you when you want to be done with it. Whether it's emotional, whether it's you've made enough money, whether it's you're just done being in shitty casinos.
What's your strategy for generating EV without burning out your favorite local joint?
Like, here's the thing. I am not a huge fan of, and I know you're not either, working for a minimal hourly wage. For me to do something, it's got to be worth a certain amount. Not that you can't achieve that at a local spot, but I just lean back on what I consider at this point one of my expertises, which is just your act and how good you are. You need to know the limits that they stress out about. The table max is not the table max. Maybe 2 hands of 500 freaks them out, but 2 hands of 300, you can get away with that. How you phase your bets. There are little things that you can do, but the thing about that is that you need to figure that stuff out. So if you're going to try to figure that stuff out, you need to gently come in and then for a duration of time, find what makes them uncomfortable. It's a long game for sure. And then no matter what you do, you may not last anyway.
Yeah, you could be, let's say you're telling yourself, I'm going to top out at $200 instead of $500 instead of the max, which is $500. But you could just go on a crazy huge upswing for some reason outside of your control, and then you have a really big session win that you couldn't avoid, and then that gets you on their radar and gets you backed off. So
yeah, and Scott Chow, his podcast on this is really good. I've had some experiences at 2 places that I had insider information. One of the places I kind of had to figure out what they were comfortable and uncomfortable with. The other place, I kind of knew what they were uncomfortable with. And one of those places, I took 6 figures from and never even got backed off. Like, I can go back there today. And that was a double deck game, a really good one. And I just played within what somebody else, another podcast, JC Rocks' podcast. It was his home casino, and what he achieved there was pretty amazing too. The amount of money he took and the free Mercedes and whatnot, just playing that long game with them. But the EV there was still really good, even playing within those parameters. And that place takes a lot of action. So it's really just knowing your environment, trying to figure it out if that's what your goal is. And I have that goal sometimes at places that are not local because they are that good. So I was kind of a mixed maximizer / optimizer depending on where I was or what was there in terms of the game. I know you struggle optimizing, Joe.
Yeah, and it also gets riskier. The decision's harder when you have less places to play locally. So someone like a Scott Chow who had 5 to maybe 8 options around to spread the love. If you only have one option, then that decision on what to do makes it way harder.
Yeah, and you get suckered in too. Like in my region, the 6 places I can play, one of them is really, really good. And you'll find yourself like, yeah, okay, maybe I should shuffle around, but I really want to go play that half deck pen game. and then you're just like, crap. So it's a tough question. I don't think there's an actual answer for it other than just do your best and come in soft and try to figure it out. And then you're going to become well known. Then the question of rated or unrated comes up too. I still say not rated. I never played rated at my locals.
No benefit, right?
No benefit. I have said that staunchly forever. As you know, there is no benefit to me for playing rated with the bankroll I started with.
How about this? I had a phone call with someone who asked me this. They said at their one and only local, they mandatory ID everyone. Doesn't matter who you are. So everyone's getting their ID scanned at the front. Do you just use your player's card anyway because you have mandatory ID, or is it better to just not have the card at all, just in case?
I still say not have the card. And also, I'm not saying this person is wrong. I've just played places that I was told that was the case and that's how it worked. And I've gotten away with not being ID'd. You know, maybe the first couple times you get ID'd, you get to know some people there. It's a local, right? And they'll get to know you. And then you start acting as if, and you can avoid that. The first couple times, you know, you come in, you get ID'd, you go, crap, I forgot this, go back to your car, come back in, do that whole little trick. I just don't think it's worth it because not all the scanners and stuff are hooked up the same way. Are they going to roll it all the way back? Like, you just don't know what they're going to do. So why help them out more giving them your name at the table by playing rated?
Yeah, it's much easier to input a red flag into the system if it's a player's card that they're using at the table, because then it could flag to all their properties around the country.
Yeah.
Call surveillance when this person shows up. Otherwise, the ID at the door thing, they would have to, like, after the fact, rewind the tape, create an account for you while you're not there using your ID, which they're probably not going to do.
Also, I agree with what Gina says, Miss Brown. She only uses her passport. A lot of those places can't scan a passport. It doesn't work that way. So bring in your passport. There's less information. Doesn't really jive the same. Just be creative. But no, I just don't think it's worth it.
Does counting cards take the fun out of gambling and turn it into work?
Joe, have you ever had fun gambling?
Yes, actually.
No, really? Tell me that story.
So I will say this. Counting cards, it definitely takes a certain fun out of playing blackjack, for sure. I will never be able to again go to Atlantic City with my college buddies and play, all night until we're, blue in the face, and we'll just never have that joy again. But I would much rather have that fun taken away and have the advantage I have now 100 times over than miss out on the thrill of gambling,
Yeah, it's just not, it's hard for me to answer this because I don't think I'm capable of having fun gambling.
Did you ever gamble before you?
Nope. I've never even bought a lottery ticket.
Wow.
Poker, but I was an AP in poker when I was doing it. I mean, I don't even like to buy Super Bowl squares. Like, it just bothers me. And that's going to quote unquote charity. I'd rather just say, like, that I do this every year because my buddy makes me. I tell him every year, I'm like, I'll just give you the $250. Like, I don't want the squares. And he's like, well, you're going to get them anyway because you give me the $250. I'm like, I don't want them. I just want to give you the money to the nonprofit. But I mean, I've had fun while counting, and I shared those stories before. I'm not going to rehash those, but I've had fun counting with really good friends on, the Colts trip, and with my other buddy, Alex, that I played with in Vegas. And both of those were really fun because they both went well with a friend playing next to me. And, getting double blackjacks on both of those is the first time I raised my bet on both games with two different friends. It was just amazing because their face. But that was more fun because I was with my friends. It wasn't the gambling. You know what I mean? It was just clowning around with them. So
it still can be thrilling. Responsible card counting for plus EV profit. There's still thrills in there. It's just different. It's just a different thing you're chasing. It's like getting the time in and fooling them. And
yeah, I mean, I think you need to ask yourself, what do you find fun about gambling? Like, why is it fun? Like, define that. That's just what I can't get over, because I know they have the edge. So I just feel like I'm always losing, even if I were winning. Like I do AP plays and I feel like a gambler sometimes, and I hate that feeling.
I think 99% of people who get into this and actually do it successfully, they never want to just gamble for fun afterwards, unless there's some sort of underlying addiction problem going on. But I just have never really seen that.
Yeah, and I kind of have a rule too. Anybody that like we're wanting to learn, me personally, if they are already a gambler, I would never teach them anything AP ever, even if they're a good friend. Like, it's a no go for me.
Does card counting give you an advantage in the game of Uno? It seems like a silly question, but it is a good exercise in finding out how to beat other games.
Yeah.
So one thing with Uno that's interesting is, yeah, there are higher value cards like the wilds, the +4, draw 4 wilds, and the wilds and the draw 2s. So you could theoretically, I guess, assign values to those, like wild draw 4 +2, wild 1/1, draw 2 1/1. And then when you see it's like a high count, quote unquote high count, I guess the strategy is to just, if there's a lot of wilds that have already been played, then you can be a lot more aggressive in your play. But then the whole thing that confuses me about Uno is the penetration in Uno, because it constantly recycles. Well, I guess it does shuffle once you get the draw pile starts to get smaller and smaller. Then that's sort of when it's time to shuffle. I guess that would be like the cut card. So you just have to do.
Yeah, I don't know if it's directly card counting, but I will say, I think Colin and I talked about this in the last mailbag we did. We play games for a living, and you almost can't help but trying to AP a game. And I've frustrated friends and family because my brain, when introduced to a new game, I'm always like, I want to thoroughly understand the rules. And then I right away try to formulate like the most efficient way to play this game that's just built in. So not necessarily card counting, but I think that definitely starts happening to you. And, there are no, like the whole thing with Monopoly, like the most efficient way to win at that game and to have an edge is there's only so many hotels that can be used. So the way to win is to buy every property you land on. You're not picking and choosing. It doesn't matter if it's, I don't remember if St. Charles Place is a crappy one or not. I haven't played forever, but like say that's a crappy property. Nobody ever wants that. Everybody always wants Park Place, Boardwalk. You buy everything that you land on that you can put a property on, and you, as quickly as possible, upgrade to the hotels. And at a certain point, there's not going to be any hotels left, and nobody else can get hotels. So they're going to have to start mortgaging to you like you are going to win that way because there's a finite amount of hotels. So,
I just love how serious you talk about
yeah.
Monopoly strategy.
But it's just like thinking in those kind of terms and how to beat a particular game. Like my brain just does it now. And I want to do it because if I'm playing a game, I want to win.
Yeah, and also with the Uno, even if you did devise a counting strategy, you have to think about the long-term end zero. How many rounds are you going to be able to play of Uno with? So that you'd have to even if you do have a winning system, you'd have to find a way to overcome it. All this to say, looking a little bit, okay, I have to confess, I did look into a little bit of how to beat Uno before we did this podcast. And looking at the different variables of the counting system and stuff, it's easier to beat blackjack than it is to beat Uno. I'll say that.
That makes sense.
All right. Favorite movie featuring card counting?
Holy Rollers, Colin. It's got to be Holy Rollers. No.
You shill.
Yeah. I think for me, it would be between the classic Rain Man, because I just think that's a great movie also. And then The Hangover, also an amazing movie. And The Hangover, how they weave the whole thing in, like he's getting in the card. It's Beat the Dealer, isn't it? Isn't that the book?
I think it's actually the world's greatest blackjack book.
That's what it is. Okay.
Yeah.
But he's got the book and this just underlying theme of like Alan's just reading this book the whole time. And then out of reading the book, he just goes down and crushes it. I think that's hilarious.
I like The Last Casino, the Canadian version of the 21.
Oh, yeah. I've actually never watched that one. I've never watched the Canadian version.
We're going to have to watch it next time we're in Vegas, just for fun.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know. It was just fun because it took card counting a little bit more seriously than 21 did. I mean, it's still highly embellished, but it at least is a little bit more true to how things work in 21.
Yeah, that's the thing about movies. They're never like spot on about anything. You watch any movie about skydiving, you're just like, oh my gosh, this is not how it works. You can't talk in free fall. Nobody can hear you. Skydives don't last 5 minutes, like or longer. Like it's always everything's always wrong. If you're in some kind of niche like sport or you're in card counting or whatever, the movies always make massive mistakes, and it's definitely true with card counting.
Truth is more boring than fiction in this case.
Right. Hot women aren't hitting on you in the casino either. It's 85-year-old women talking to you about their grandkids.
How do you handle longevity in card counting? What happens when the notoriety catches up with you? Travel costs become too expensive to justify the EV.
I think I should just call Tommy Highland really quick. Have him take this
really.
one.
Yeah, I'll have to say, if in the past when I've slowed down or stopped doing card counting for a stretch of time, it was never because I couldn't get hours or because it wasn't worth the EV. It was based on so many other different things, like where I was living at the time or, what my other options were relative. I mean, it wasn't even it wasn't even like, oh, card counting is worth more, so I'm going to go do this versus this other AP play. It was, a lot of it is not about because of the notoriety or the heat. It's never really been about heat. I think for me, it was more, I played like a lot of table hours in multiple countries and found a lot of cool blackjack games. And it was just sort of like, well, what's the next thing? I kind of like, at first it was like, oh, I want to make a living at this. And then I want to hit this benchmark of money. And then I was like, well, I want to go to this country to play. Like, you just keep checking off all these boxes. And then you're kind of like, the motivation for me, that's where it kind of died a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, the thing about now is that there's never been more games to play. So we always say, yeah, the rules aren't as good as they were 30 years ago, 40 years ago, but there's never been so many places to play. And listen, there's a guy on Twitter that thinks that he's messing with me. Really, I'm messing with him, but he's a surveillance guy, and he's basically like, card counting is dead. You cannot beat facial recognition, blah, blah, blah. It's like, dude, I actually know where he works, played in his property before. Like, T. Dane's podcast, if you haven't listened to it, listen to it. It will open your eyes. And one of the best things that he says that I completely agree with, because he's been doing it a long time, and the guy knows his stuff. The more tools, the more technology, the more complex it gets, the more they rely on that technology. There are ways to beat that. There are ways to get around it. Longevity is not going to be an issue for the foreseeable future. Now, one day, might there be a way to never be able to count cards again? Sure, but it's not today, and it's not for a while, in my opinion.
Exactly. If, let's say, like some of the smaller properties that don't have the surveillance budget to buy all this software, and if there becomes some, AI tracking software or something for blackjack, because the amount of customers is so small, they're going to have to sell it at a high premium, and those casinos aren't going to want to pay that premium for it, considering how crappy they value the surveillance department to begin with. So, but even if they do, let's say it does get cheap enough where, let's say every single casino in the country, even those small ones, are using some kind of new software, we're going to find a way to beat the software score, or we're going to find a way to beat it. And that's going to make card counting even easier to get away with.
Yeah, APs tend to be proactive. Surveillance rooms are reactive. Like, real APs are always ahead. And if you want to be in the game, you've got to think ahead. And you will be able to overcome what they're doing. I mean, listen, Vegas has always been sharper. It's always been how you play Vegas is different a lot of times. How you accomplish hours there has always been different. But there's so many properties in such a condensed area. I don't think, and facial recognition in the last couple of years has gotten better and better. MGM's got phenomenal facial facial recognition. Resorts World does too. Like there are places that have really high end facial that's constantly scanning, like that kind of stuff. I don't think it's got any more difficult to get the hours in than it was 5, 10 years ago. And the facial recognition is now like pretty daggone good, but it hasn't changed. Doesn't mean you can't go in there and hit them and go and hit them again the next trip you come in. Like this whole idea that you're just going to get picked off right away. Like think outside the box, people. You can 100% not be seen by their facial recognition cameras in certain ways. So just think.
All right. So for our last question, how do you justify card counting as a career when other pursuits, for example, securities trading, computing, may be more lucrative? What makes card counting so appealing despite the stresses? Yeah, that's a good question. And it's kind of a timely one. I was talking to someone who is a programmer and not an entry level programmer at all, but he is actively looking for other sources of income right now, even though he has a really good salary job, because 20% of his workforce is being laid off because the AI has been advancing so fast in his field. So he's trying to get ahead of it and as a backup look for other, and he was joking with me. He was like, oh, maybe I should just learn card counting, And that person's like one small example. Card counting is not going to be threatened by AI advancement in any near future, like what we just talked about. And I've talked to plenty of people who have high salaried jobs, and a lot of those people, the stresses of that job are not worth it. Like they have to deal with management that is just so frustratingly incompetent, and they're having to deal with all these other they can't have much time off. Like the amount of hours that they're working, like beyond their contract, is just that happens all the time. It's just you own your own time when you're card counting, and then it doesn't seem like you're forced to do this thing you don't want to do.
Yeah, kids, if you haven't seen Office Space, you need to watch it. TPS reports, getting your TPS reports in.
I mean, what do you think about trading versus card counting?
Yeah, so my backstory, most of you probably know. I worked for corporations. I was in the C-level, C-suite. I was a director as a VP. I had a big corporate salary on top of making big corporate commissions. And a large part of my life was in the financial world and specifically the trading world of the market. So the question, what makes card counting so appealing despite the stresses? Like, yeah, there's stress in everything. I'd take the card counting stresses or getting my teeth kicked in on a regular basis in the AP world versus the stresses in corporate life. My wife is, she's a director level at a corporation. And I'm not kidding you, Joe. If she has to have a meeting and I have to be in earshot from her, like I want to vomit when I hear the corporate speak and the calls that I just have flashbacks to my corporate life. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I am never going back to that. I will do whatever it takes to not go back to that. If every casino shut down tomorrow, I would figure out another way to not have to go back to corporate life. So, and more lucrative, listen, that's a depending, it depends kind of statement. Is card counting more lucrative than trading? I'll tell you right now, in the trading world, it's kind of like AP play. 1 to 2% actually make money in it. And then there's 1 to 2% of that 1 to 2% that make an insane amount of money. I mean, Joe, you and I have been really successful in our AP lives, but have we been as successful as Bill Bender?
No, not even close.
Not even close. So and that happens in the trading world too. In the programming world, that's just the nature of the beast. So I don't know. It's really, what do you want to pursue? What do you want to get good at? Why are you doing it? Do you have an end game in mind? Do you not? Maybe you're more free-spirited and you're like, I'm just going to do it until I don't want to do it anymore. And maybe I'll go back to it and then I'll find something else. That's just kind of how you have to look at it. But if you want to get into securities trading or computing, you got to do the same thing that you did with card counting. You got to learn all the basics. You got to understand the game, then you have to get involved in the game and try to excel at it. It's really no different. The biggest difference is what you just said. Your time is your time.
Yeah, and I think it's still, I'm not saying everyone should just quit their job and start counting. I'm definitely not saying that. You have to really think about what stresses you can live with and put up with. But it is like, let's say you do quit your corporate job and you try out the blackjack thing. Maybe you do it for a year or 2 years. You're able to make money, build up some money, but then you're like, oh man, I can't do this I want to go back to my old kind of lifestyle and job. You can do that, and that way you can go into it with gratitude, and because you want to be back in the corporate world. So it doesn't have to be an all or nothing thing. You could do this for a stint and then enjoy the hell out of it, but realize that it's not what you want to do long term. And plenty of people do that. Like, we've seen people come through BJA and then they go to boot camp and earn a living for several years, and then they go back to do something similar to what they were doing before. But
yeah, a lot of amazing businesses have been started by, former APs, former card counters that had that season in their life, and then they went on to do other things. And I'd say generally that kind of person is still like, my time is my time, and they tend to be more entrepreneurial and start their own kind of thing. But I think we definitely tell people, listen, full-time advantage play it's tough. You don't want to go into that quickly. I part-timed it for a long time and kept my corporate job for a long time until I had had enough, and then made the switch over.
what was the tipping point for you to be like, at your other job, to be like, this is not worth doing anymore? Like, I just can't stand it here.
Well, my situation is a big multi-billion-dollar company. They weren't really VCs. They were partners, and they bought businesses and they built them up, and then the goal was to flip them. But they owned the last company I worked for, and everything was great under them. And then when they sold out, which I don't hate them for doing, that was their goal, to this multi-billion-dollar behemoth, it got very, very corporate-y, which I ran away from my other job and took this one for that reason. Because number one, that's funny, I always tell my wife, I don't want any direct reports. And then also, in all the other businesses that I own right now, I don't want employees either. I don't want to manage people. I've done that enough in my life, and that can be really, really, really frustrating. But number two, I don't want the man trying to tell me how to do my job when I knew how to do it most optimally, efficiently, and for the biggest bang for the buck for myself and the company. Because I was their number one sales guy. Like, I had the biggest region, and I'm not trying to be braggadocious, but like, I did things that no other salesperson did. And then when this multi-billion-dollar company came in, the first thing they did was try to get really corporate-y with the sales team. And, they started checking in on me and saying, how many calls have you made? How many touch points have you made? And anybody that's in sales understands this. We noticed that you didn't log in this many calls into your CRM, customer relationship management software, Salesforce, something like that.
And I'm already bored.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And I'm like, guys, listen, my CRM notes are thorough. That's all you need to worry about. That and how much business I'm bringing in. That's all that matters to you. Leave me alone and let me do my thing. And it became worse and worse and worse. And then it got to the point where they're like, corporations do this. We pay SD1 a really big base. We could probably just hire like 3 guys at crappy bases to do what he's doing. And I knew that was starting to happen. And I was just like, I'm done. And decided to go full time. And then COVID hit. So I had great timing.
Yeah, that's a common thread I've heard amongst my other friends too, who are either about to leave corporate life or they've been laid off. And the corporate world, they just don't care about you at all. It's purely just dollars and cents, and it's just you're totally disposable without any kind of sympathy. But yeah, that example, it's kind of like if you were sitting at an 8-deck game or something with a slow dealer, and your corporation was telling you cannot jump around to other tables, and right next door there's a guy dealing like 6-deck really, really fast with 1 deck cut off.
Yeah.
like no one there and you can't go over and play. You're just like, oh.
Yeah. And I get it. In the corporate world, again, back to what you just said, they do not care about it. There are small businesses that care about their employees. That exists. Corporations, no matter how much bullshit they sling towards you about caring about you, they do not care about you. And human resources is not there for you. It's for the corporation. That's also a lie. Like, they don't care about you. You are a cog in the wheel. And if you do not do exactly as they say, whether it is wrong or right, you're going to face an uphill battle. And I always struggle with that too. I tended to, this is going to be a shocker to everybody, speak my mind a lot. And sometimes that was rewarded, but a lot of times it got me in trouble.
So to learn card counting, join blackjackapprenticeship.com for your next future career path.
Well, I was going to say one more thing in my very long-winded talk about corporate life. This question comes up a lot to us, and I've had people, like friends, even pose it to me like, you're not really doing anything for society. You're just trying to make money. That's what you're trying to do. And I'm just like, I think people in corporations are fooling themselves thinking that they're doing something for society also. They're just trying to get a paycheck. And also, I came from the trading world and the financial world. If you think anybody in that industry is doing anything for society, you are wrong. That's doing nothing for society. Not a daggone thing. The markets are going, well, great. That's it. So if you want to be philanthropic, but to me, when you're trying to make money, you're trying to make money, and you can do things for society outside of it. So if that's something that bothers you and gets to you, I get that too, but there are other ways to approach that. Other businesses to start out of your AP career while still trying to pursue the Lord's holy calling, which is taking money from the evil casinos.
Well said. Well said. Thanks for joining us, guys. If you want to learn more about card definitely check out the website. We've got a ton of good stuff on there. Something that's not talked about a lot is like the BJA chat rooms are really, really helpful. If you're a member on blackjackapprenticeship.com, not only do we have the forum that's available to everyone, but also the regional chat rooms where there's a lot of talking shop going on, not a lot of distractive nonsense that you could possibly find on other outlets.
Yeah.
Everyone on there is really helpful, supportive, and productive. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your drive or day, wherever it may take you.